What's good? This is Elton Anderson Jr., aka Detroit Chopra. And I'm gonna just tell y'all right now, this is my episode. This is the episode I am excited about. I already know, I could feel it. We ain't even recorded it yet. And I already know this is gonna be like my favorite episode of this entire show. And that's because we are talking about consciousness. We're getting really deep into it. And I don't really try to talk about it too much on my Instagram page or even on this podcast because I wanted to learn more. I wanted to really, before I start sharing knowledge, I wanted to have somebody who could guide me through this. But I am so fascinated with the different densities of consciousness and how we can raise our consciousness, not only to increase manifestation, but also heal yourself, right? Also, also call in love, also remove fear and remove limitations. So I have an amazing guest. She is so cool. She decided to sit down with me after a quick DM. I said, "Do you mind?" She said, "Sure." And literally 2 hours later, we're on this podcast. So without further ado, I have Raphaella. Raphaella. How do I say it?
Yes, Raphaella.
Raphaella Silva, and she is currently in Brazil, which is already one of my favorite places in the world. I've been there like 10 times and lived there twice. So Raphaella, what's up?
What's up? I'm so glad to be. I'm excited, actually.
Yeah, this is exciting, right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
think I'm more excited than you because we've been acquainted via the Instagram, and I really love Detroit Chopra's Instagram because I get to meet so many amazing people. And I don't even know how we started talking. I don't even know, you know what I'm saying? Like, but we be chatting.
Yeah. I mean, I've been following you for a while. I was following your Elton account some years ago, and then you started Detroit Chopra, and I was like, oh, that is super dope. And I just began following you there, and I was like, and the message that you were putting out, I was like, yes,
Mhm.
that's what it's really all about.
Yeah,
So
the transition it's been a little scary, but it has been one that's been so helpful. So what about your transition? Because we got you on here, we're talking about this consciousness, and it seems like we talked a little bit that you just got a lot of powers. Like you are magical. Can you tell us about the magic of you? And don't be shy. Don't be
now you
don't be humble.
push a little bit. It's been a really amazing journey. I'll just quickly, just a quick background. So I was born and raised in Brazil,
Mhm.
in City of God. I don't know if you ever heard of City of God, the
The
slum.
best
And
movie ever.
yes, so I was born and raised there.
Whoa.
Um, and I was raised in a family of 24 musicians. They were all my uncles and grandparents, all musicians. But they were part of a religion called Umbanda in Brazil. And I'm not sure
Okay.
if you ever heard of it,
Yeah,
which is a
yeah.
mix of Candomblé, Cardicism, and Catholicism.
Yes.
So, on Sundays we would go to church, but Saturday nights we were at the temple that my family had, where we practiced the Umbanda, we received the spirits and things like that. So I grew up around all of it, and I always knew that there was something for me to do. Like even as a young kid, I always was very connected to it, you
Mhm.
know. And when I went to the United States at 13, is when I began to dive into different religions. I was looking for something. I was searching for something, and until one day I actually found it through going through what I like to call the dark night of the soul.
Oh, I know about it.
We,
Let's
we
talk.
all we all been there. I went through so many different relationships. A lot of I don't even like to call it toxic anymore. I just like to call it now low vibration relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but they're all there to really begin to help you see yourself.
Yeah.
And last year I went through one that was so toxic, but so toxic that if I had continued there, I probably wouldn't be here to tell the story.
Wow.
But I had a dark night of the soul while I was in there. And I actually literally saw myself go into this dark hole.
Hmm.
like I literally saw myself going into this dark hole. But I was having dreams, I was having visions, I was having, so many things that were happening at the same time. I'm like, well, what do I deal with all this? Like, what is happening to me, But I was inside this dark hole. And I remember at the time asking God, I said, but I knew that where I was going to come out of. And I kept
Yeah.
saying, I said, when is it all going to end? When is it going to end? When is this thing going to end? Like, I got to get out of here, And all I heard was, I'm right here.
Mm.
And that's when I understood that dark hole, the dark night of the soul, it's so necessary.
Yes. Yes.
For us to really, it's almost like to shoot us out into the world as our authentic self.
You're hitting it's hitting me. It is hitting me so deeply because my dark night of the soul, it actually happened in Namibia. That was the peak of my dark night of the soul, and it happened last year. I didn't even know what it was called until after I came out of it. There was just a point where I remember I had the vision to go to Namibia. I got a tent and I went to the desert and I slept in the desert for 3 nights and just cried. And it is the deepest. So when you talk about that hole, I started getting goosebumps because I know what that hole feels like, and you feel lost and you feel so alone. You feel more alone than you ever could feel in your entire life. And you have to be alone. You have to be alone with yourself because that's the only way you can even begin to love yourself. And that's the only way you can even get to that authenticity you talked about. So, ooh, girl, I know.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was at home. Here's the interesting about my dark night of the soul. I was at home. There was somebody laying next to me.
You said what?
I was at home and there was a person laying next to me, my ex.
Oh,
And my
the
dark
X.
night of the soul happened right in that moment where
Whoa.
I cried profusely to the point where, like sometimes I even feel like I even sweat thinking about it, It was so profuse. So sometimes, because a lot of people, for example, that are married, they're in certain relationships, sometimes they're not even able to get out. And I want to say that because there are people that might not be able to carve that time to be alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah, that's
when the dark night of the soul happens, it just happens when it's time for it to happen. You can be taking a bath.
you could be
Uh,
a mother, you could be a father, you could have kids, you could be a CEO, you could be whatever. You're right. So we have to
whatever.
have compassion for, because everybody doesn't have the privilege to be alone. So thank you so much for bringing that up because that's definitely important.
But know that the dark night of the soul will happen when it's time for it to happen.
Yeah.
And mine happened in a situation where I'm here crying, and this person couldn't even hear me. So it's almost supernatural because almost like there's a covering you so that you could really, here I am like crying, but crying through my soul. Like my soul was crying.
It's your
And
cocoon. You just built an energetic cocoon around you.
you do, and you sit there and you really go into this fetus position and you're just there, just crying. I was screaming inside, like
Wow.
screaming.
Wow.
And it was from that point forward that things began to shift. I began to see things different. I began to look at this person. I was like, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
this is no good. Like, this is not going to end well.
I feel it.
And so
Mhm.
I began to I went into this quietness because I talk a lot. And so I began to stay really quiet. And I wasn't saying anything. I wasn't speaking as much anymore because I went into a place of observing things, what was happening around me. I was given this thing like, oh my gosh, I can see things very clear now. I can hear things a little bit more clear. And I would say about 2 months after that, I literally put all my stuff in my car and I was out. I left everything behind.
But this story is my story. I can't even, I'm losing my mind because I know I can feel I'm picturing everything that you're going through. I'm picturing, but not just that, I'm feeling everything you're going through in this moment. And I understand the idea that you have to literally let go of everything. And the dark night of the soul is such a gift. It is such, in retrospect, it is the biggest gift ever because you have the opportunity to literally ascend.
Yeah.
You can't take any of those things with you, and you're losing yourself. You're losing I know we use the butterfly analogy a lot, but I can't think of a better analogy. You literally leave the caterpillar behind. And so if you have other caterpillars that you're cool with, they could be friends, they could be family, they could be your husband, your wife. You have to leave these other caterpillars behind because you are becoming a butterfly. And unfortunately, unless they learn how to fly too, you just can't be connected to them in the same way that you once were.
You gotta go. You gotta trust. You gotta trust spirit,
Yeah.
and you have to go and know that each step of the way you are being guided, you're being protected, because all of us have what I like to call our spirit team. And that could be a combination of your ancestors, your beings of light. In my case, also the Arcturians, right? Which we can touch base
We're
on.
gonna get into the
So,
Arcturians.
yeah. So all of us have a team. So imagine you have a team just for Elton. You know what I mean? That is, and their whole purpose is to help you. So imagine like not only being it's like imagine you're being the CEO or something, and you have a whole team to help you out, to
Yeah.
guide you to different things, and that's all they're there for. So they're whenever you call and say, "We're here. What you need?"
Yeah, they'll do it.
You know.
And they even go beyond that. They anticipate what you need because this is my theory. I feel like your higher self
Mhm.
is directing your spirit team. So they're saying, okay, she needs to get in this relationship and she needs to be broken in this relationship. If she doesn't go through this relationship, she won't get the lesson because she don't listen. She might be hard-headed. You know what I'm saying? Because you know what I'm saying? Like you might continue to date the same guy in a
Yeah.
different body. But they were like, she want to be hard-headed, so we're gonna really teach her this lesson. And I had to go through the same thing. I was super hard-headed, and I was like, I was focused on the wrong thing, whether it was drugs, sex, just manipulation, whatever I was doing. And it was like, all right, he gonna be hard-headed. We're going to get him together because that's when he's gonna listen. So it is such a gift. And so I wanna start talking about what happens after the dark night of the soul. And the way that we kind of had a conversation just yesterday was we were talking about 3D and 5D consciousness, and you were like, I can tell you whatever you need to know about it. I said, tell me everything. And guys, she literally left me all of these voicemails and voice notes in Instagram DMs, and I was so grateful for them. And I kind of want to walk through what that is because I first learned about the different densities because when you say 3D, you automatically go to 3D. You either think about 3D, put on your little glasses in the movie theater, and you're like, oh, 3D.
Right.
And that's not what we're talking about today.
No,
And
it's not.
these are levels of consciousness. And so Raphaella has I think in my terms is the best way to explain it because when you explained it, I totally got it. So I like I said, I first heard about it when I was looking at the Law of One and the Ra papers,
Yeah.
the Ra channels. And if you guys haven't heard of the Law of One, that is a rabbit hole that you can go down through for your whole weekend. If you want a whole weekend, just spend 3 or 4 days looking at Law of One. But yeah, Raphaella, let's start. Let's start about what 3D and 5D consciousness is and where we are, where the earth is, all that.
So before I even start talking about 3D and 5D, I want to just say that there's actually 12 dimensions. So 3D is just dimensions, and it's actually 12. So we'll go from 1 to 12.
Yeah.
So everything is vibrating, everything's energy. So the vibration, first vibration is, water, flowers, the nature, those are vibrating in
Elements.
1D. So everything has a conscious, everything has a vibration conscious. So that's something to think about as we go into the 2D, which is the animals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They also have a conscience. They also vibrate in a 2D level. And then there's us.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to touch on the animals too, because there's a scale. So there's like monkeys would be the highest in the 2D scale, and like a worm would be at the bottom. So
Right.
they're the 2D with the animals, it's a spectrum, you
There
know.
is a spectrum. And
Yeah.
know that as we also begin to vibrate higher, as we begin to change as well, they're also going to be changed as well.
Yeah.
So they're also going to go higher in dimensions.
Talking dogs and my golden retriever gonna be talking.
Well, I don't know if they're going to be talking, but they're definitely going to be elevated as well.
Okay.
So 3D is the space we live, we call Earth. This is a dimension we call Earth. And here is where we come to experience all the emotions there is to experience. So we choose to come here and we choose to go through this process of emotions that we go through. So we choose the life that we're living right now. Some folks ain't going to be okay with that, but that's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So you come here sometimes to have, to go through certain sicknesses, to go through certain pains, you chose to come here and process all of this. The only thing is that we forgot. Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens is, because 3D is so dense, it's hard for us to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the veil of
So
forgetfulness. Is that what it's called? We
that's what it's called.
go through the veil of forgetfulness to get into these bodies.
We do, but here's what happens as we come here as babies. We're given culture, we're given language, we're given all these things. But there's a certain point in your life where's that little thing that start like, there's something bigger out here. There's something more, right? It doesn't matter who you are. It's going to start, hey, excuse me. Remember, you're here to do something, right?
Uh-huh.
You're here to feel this and do this. And sometimes what happens to us, because we don't give in to that voice, we stay stuck on that dimension.
Yeah.
We leave and then we come back to do it again.
This episode is hitting. It's hitting me right where I needed to hit, because my first thought, to be honest, was my own journey. I went to dinner with what I can only call my soul tribe of Power Rangers. So being out here in Bali, you'll meet a lot more people that are in that 5D consciousness. Like you can trip over somebody who's in 5D consciousness, and not even in a performative way, because a lot of times we have people where we meet that have the spiritual egos and they dress the part, and you're like, I don't even,
Yeah.
you ain't right. But I went out with 6 people that are like really true people, and you would never even guess. And they've all been on my podcast. And what's been happening is I've been meeting my tribe in real life, and they all look so different. One is a 20-year-old guy from London. Another one is like a 42-year-old Punjab guy that grew up in Vancouver. Another guy's a German meditation leader. Like, it's literally the most random collection of people. And what I realized is that when I was at the table, I was asking everybody, like, when did you realize you were different? And everybody was like 5 and 8 and 11. I'm like, what? Raphaella, I did not know I was different till about 3 months ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was for me. So I want to know how that was for you, because you seem like you've always been knowing that you had a different.
I think I've always been knowing that I was different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my process began a few months ago when I was in Arizona. I was over a friend of mine's house in Arizona. She's a shaman from Ecuador. And she lives in Phoenix. I was over her house for a couple of weeks, and we did this whole ceremony. We would go outside and do a bonfire, and she would do her shamanic work, and we would just lay there on the ground in the grass and looking at the stars after.
I love
And we
that.
did that for like 2 weeks, and we just lay in the ground with her, with her blankets, and we just lay there and just look at the stars. And I knew at that moment, I looked at the star and I kept saying, I don't know what came over, and I was like, I'm right here, y'all. I was like, something came over me where I recognized that I was from a galaxy.
Oh, yes. Tell me.
And I knew, and I didn't know what it was. I was like, I just kept saying like, hey, I'm right here. I'm about to do, help me do this work. And I just was able to recognize that I was from a galaxy, but I just didn't know what it was and where it was.
Mhm.
So when I got to Brazil, which I was not planning on coming to Brazil, I was in California, I was in Santa Barbara, and I was like, okay, what's next? I was asking Spirit, what's next? What do you want me to do? And I said, I know what's really tight. He says, I want you to go to Brazil.
Mhm. And you're from Brazil.
I am from Brazil, but
Yeah.
I was in California at the time. I was living in Santa Barbara. Like, what's next? I want you to go to Brazil. Like, really? I want to go home. I'd be like, going home. It's like this whole thing. I'm like, okay, I'll go to Brazil. And it was like a Wednesday, and I was in a plane like next Tuesday or something. It was like a quick thing. So I got to Brazil, and I began to do some work with a therapist while I was here. But I found a therapist, which is so unlikely, that had all these holistic
Oh, wow.
modalities,
Mhm.
from shamanic Reiki to Akashic records, like the odds of finding that in Brazil. And
You
she's a
manifested that.
psychologist.
You already know you
I
manifested that.
manifested
You
that.
don't
I'm like,
even,
that's
it's not even, you
exactly
can't
what,
even be surprised anymore because your manifestation is so strong. So
So I'm starting to work with her, and she said, and then like a week later, after her first session, she says, "Hey, I'm having this training on Arcturian healing method. I know that you do energy work training. Do you want to do the course?" And I'm like, didn't
yes.
even know who Arcturians were. I'm like, yeah, I sure do. And at that moment, when I finished the course,
Mhm.
is when I knew. It's all of a sudden, that's when I discovered who I was.
Wow. And who are you?
So I am a being of light that are here to help other people ascend,
Mm.
to show love, to help those people that are living in fear,
Mhm.
to bring, what the gift that I've been given, the things that I've been given, to send energy. So what I do energy work. So I send energy to folks, and as a form of light.
Wow.
So with different color lights. And so let's say you're there, I'm here. I might say, okay, Elton, I want you to lay down wherever you are, be comfortable. And I just pretend that you're laying right in front of me. And I begin to work on you, on your body. I begin to use the symbols that they have given me to use, the Arcturians, because they had different symbols for healing. So I begin to use the symbols on you with different type of color lights. And at that moment, you know, you're gonna feel peace and love. Your heart's gonna be start feeling love and peace. So less pain. So they might say, okay, here's what's going on with this person over here.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
what I need you to tell her. What she needs to work on, remove. Yeah.
Yo,
So so
well,
they would tell me that.
I
Mm-hmm.
want to try this so bad. First of all, uh, I want some arterial healing. And you were
Mm-hmm.
telling me earlier before we got on this podcast that their message to you is so strong that if you don't give the message to the person, they will be on your head until you give. How does it feel when you resist passing the message on? What happens?
If I resist passing the message, all of a sudden my stomach start feeling not well. I feel dizzy, nausea. It's like, okay, I gotta go tell this person. All right, here we go.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's a vibration. Because here's the thing: when I work on people, and this happened to me recently,
Mhm.
there was a young lady that I did some work on, and before I started, they said, "I don't want you to work on her. But, I'm like, well, the whole love thing kicks in and you want to help and those things. But said, not hurt, not just yet. And so what happens is I touched her aura. I went there and I did the work. And all of a sudden I couldn't even give her light. It was just so dark. I just couldn't give her light. And so I was like, oh my God, what is that? Like, what was that? And so I did it again the next day.
You hard-headed. Here you go, being hard-headed. Go ahead.
So I did it again the next day. And then I started feeling really sick. Like really, really sick. And so they had to come and work on me to remove all the stuff that I was feeling. And there were things that I was supposed to say to her, and all those things. So all that, so you begin to feel this, because everything's energy. We're all connected. And so if I don't tell someone what's happening, like if I don't tell Elton, this is what came up for Elton. You told Elton, but you didn't tell Elton that.
Wait, hold on. So these Arcturians, how clear are the voices and messages? Are they like texting you? Are they sending you little DM? Are they sliding your DMs? Like how are they communicating with you? Like in what? Because I have two other friends who tell me about their Arcturian relationship. So I want to hear what yours is.
So all of us are different. So they're going to come to us in different ways. For me, so it's not like an audible, it's like I hear the voice, is my consciousness speaking. Okay. So they usually come to me, let's say, for example, we're sitting here and all of a sudden they would say, tell Elton. So it's not somebody else's voice that I'm hearing. It's like my own voice, but I know that it's not me talking. It's my consciousness that is starting to talk. And I can feel this thing on my tummy. There's this thing in my tummy that happens that I know is them that is communicating. And some people might not have it that way. Some people might do it through dreams. Okay, they might communicate them through dreams. So it depends on each individual. Sometimes I'll get this thing right before. Like, for example, I was reading, I pulled out some cards for a friend of mine the other day. She asked me a question. Right before I pull out the cards, they already said that, well, this is what this is. So you
don't even need to leave. Girl, I'm gonna need these cards. Do this, do that. I'm done.
Right. And so it's this thing that you hear it and it's very clear. It's almost like you're thinking about someone and the person calls. So mine is like that. You get this message very clear in your mind.
Yeah.
So there's no confusion. It's very, very clear. Like when I did this one friend of mine where after we complete, I give her a call. And then, so here's the message they give you. So then all of a sudden I'm having a conversation. She's really quiet as I'm giving her the message. And I said to her, is there a tree? Is there a tree where you live? And she just burst out in tears because she was sitting down, looking out the window, looking at the tree. I had no idea she had a tree.
Wow. That is so powerful. That is so powerful. And that this community, these galactic beings are using you as a channel. They're using you as a tool. It's kind of like, well, damn, can I have a choice? In a sense, it's like, well, I just want to come here and go drink mimosas on Earth.
Well, here's the thing. You do have a choice.
Okay.
You do have a choice to be here and say, no, I don't want to do this work. No, I don't feel like doing. I'm going to sit here and drink mimosas and just turn up.
Right.
You can certainly do that. But guess what?
What?
You got to come back.
Oh, you're going to come back and live a life, and it's going to be even more, it's going to be even more pain and trauma because they're going to wake you up, and they wake you up through the pain and the trauma and the dark night of the soul. So
absolutely,
if you don't listen, this is the time to listen and do that. So that is so amazing. I've never heard it broken down like that. And I think that's another one of your gifts, is that you make these concepts sound so relatable. Like I related to that story, even though I've never been visited by Arcturians. I'm like, oh yeah, girl, I know. Like you made it so relatable for me. So then as we go up these different levels of consciousness, so we stopped at talking at 3D. What does 4D, 5D, and maybe even 6D look like?
So 4D is your emotions. So you're dealing with all the emotions that you're dealing with, like the what you get to experience. So the 4D is your emotional level.
Mm-hmm.
So when we vibrate in your 4D consciousness, that's when you get to feel everything.
And that's good or bad emotions. It's fear, anger,
Everything. It's just everything. The
love,
good and the bad,
bliss.
everything. Love, whatever those emotions, those senses, right? As I like to call it. You get to those are we get to experience everything,
Okay.
right? Now the 5D is where we haven't yet achieved. Now, some people might say, I'm on a 5D conscious. Not just yet, boo.
Slow down, sis.
Slow down. What's happening is because 5D is the consciousness of love. Okay. So Arcturians are people of love. They're beings of love.
Mm-hmm.
So the ego is gone, fear, everything just disappears. It's just like completely gone. There's no more of it anymore. Right. Now, they are now in the 5D dimension living that, and they already went through what we're going through now, which is 3D. So they have already achieved that level of consciousness. Now, some of them are here too, but they haven't yet awakened completely, because the moment when they do, so they're amongst us, about 1,000 of them.
They don't even know that they don't know that they aren't awakened to themselves yet.
Not some of them, not yet.
Wow.
You could be one and you don't even know it yet.
Oh.
So we don't know. There's some that have been awakened, but they still haven't ascended.
Okay. And ascending is going up within your own body. So I could be 3D now. I could be walking down the street and then I'm like, I need to go home, or I need to leave, or I need to do whatever. And you start the ascension process.
So the ascending is you're going to a higher level of consciousness. So it's not like you're literally ascending, like what we like to call it in Christianity, like you're ascending and going up in the skies. No, so your level of consciousness is vibrating higher.
Yeah.
Right. Which is when you go into 5D, you are vibrating a pure love. So there's no more pain. There's no more, like, that doesn't exist anymore. So imagine that pain not existing, which is kind of hard for us to grasp. And the reason why it's hard for us to grasp pain not existing, because we're still in this 3D world. So for us to grasp 5D for its in its entirety, it's almost impossible because we're still here.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a concept that we in our 3D bodies, or as humans, can't comprehend. So we're in 5D now. I've also heard, besides Arcturians, I've also heard of sayings of like light workers and star seeds. What is your knowledge on those titles?
So they're all different galaxies. So there are different galaxies out there. So that's not just the Arcturians. There are other, I forgot the name of the other two. There also are the light workers are coming for love.
Okay.
Again, they've all also have gone through this process that we're going through, and they have ascended. They chose to ascend. They chose to go through the physical death in order to ascend to the 5D. So they were once here as 3D. They went through all these lives, like we've gone through different lives. So like if you think about it, the way that we're being awakened right now, we're understanding, we're aware. So we have this awareness. So now we can, because we know about Akashic records, we can go back in our past lives. So now our choice to so what's happening is humanity is ascending. We're going to ascend this time around while we're still here. So we're not going to need to go through physical death anymore in order to go our level of consciousness to increase, to go
That's
higher.
why a lot of people are waking up. And
exactly.
And that's why, for me in 2019, it was the most like crazy awakening, not the most, but it was just the most definitive awakening. It was everything in me said, Elton, leave America. And the first place I went to was Brazil, which is insane. The first place I went to was Rio. And it was told me to give away everything. It told me to break up with my boyfriend at the time. It told me to not want the life that I had lived as a photographer or TV host. It told me all those things. And I looked at it as my intuition because I haven't been contacted by Arcturians, so I don't think I'm in that level because it sounds like a galactic pyramid scheme. Like here go, you could be up here, and then you got this other level, and then you level 3. So I personally haven't had that experience, but I did
Yeah.
have such a deep personal intuition, and I've always followed my intuition, which is good. I've always had strong intuition, but it was intuition within that 3D space,
Right.
and
And
it helped
just
me navigate
know
that.
that 5D, so it's not that they are like the owners of 5D.
Okay.
They're just a galaxy that operates in the 5 dimension.
Okay.
So like I have a friend who also, I forgot what that galaxy she's actually from, or the work that she does, but it's also based on 5D, but it's not Arcturian.
Okay. Okay. So it's
So
like different. It's different communities. It's like if you
it's a
somebody could be
community.
from Brazil, somebody could be from
Exactly.
Detroit, somebody could be from LA, New Orleans, from
Exactly.
different
So
planets. Okay.
there's a lot of them. There are vibrating in the 5 dimension. Remember, there's 12 of them. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of galaxies that are operating in the 5 dimension that are here on Earth trying to help, us ascend, or our conscious ascend. That's, like I said, that's why there's a lot of people um, looking for healing, looking for therapists, looking for alternative ways to feel better, or to get healed, to heal their bodies, their minds. They're now looking within, because again, this shift is going to happen, you wanting to or not.
And you'll just keep coming back and experiencing life. So I was talking to O'Neill, and as you know, you know O'Neill, right?
Do I know him?
You don't know him? Well, he's been on a couple of episodes, and he's also did an IG live with me. And we did an episode called "Are You an Old Soul?" And so he does a lot of energetic work. He's only 23 years old, and we talk every day, and he tells me about his galaxy. He doesn't know the name. He
Yeah.
hasn't given me like an actual name, but he tells me about his galaxy, and he doesn't feel human at all. How are you feeling about your humanness? Like, keep it real. Like, how do you feel?
Real.
Do you feel like, man, I know I know I'm only supposed to be on this earth to do this, but okay, I'll act like I'm human. Like, how do you feel about that?
Well, the interesting thing is, because when you get to that level where you know where you're from, and
Mhm.
you're connected to that place,
Yeah.
you look at this earth and you're like, man, I can't wait for this thing to like.
I'm glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that because that's how he talks all the time. You guys need to talk because he literally is like, Elton, I'm so tired. And he's only 23. He's like, Elton, I'm so tired of this place. Like, I'm done.
So you because and I'll share this experience with you. So I I had COVID
Wow.
uh,
Whoa.
while I was here. Yeah. So, and I had it for a week and a half, literally for a week and a half,
Okay.
and I was better. Like I didn't have any of the of the fever. Like I just had the taste and smell and the headaches. Right.
Okay.
I wasn't afraid because I understood what was happening, because even disease and things, these are all vibration, these are all energy. So
Yeah.
there's no such a thing as an actual disease that is
Yeah. A disease
everything.
is a frequency. That's I just had a talk with another
Yeah,
5D being, and he was telling me like everything's a frequency.
everything's a frequency. And at that week, I wasn't vibrating at the place where I was supposed to.
Mhm.
And they showed me exactly what happened, why even it came through me, or stop by, like I say, stop by. Because I did some work that I wasn't supposed to do. It was that case of that work. Okay.
Okay.
And it was a week and a half, and my therapist did a shamanic healing on me. And the very next day, I was better.
Right.
Like I started tasting again,
Mhm.
you know, my headaches were gone. Like I was feeling better, you know? And so during that time that I was sleeping a lot, I went somewhere, and I believe that's, back home, where I felt there was no pain, no sorrow, no nothing.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't want to go back.
Yeah. Why would
I
you?
was like, I didn't want to, like, I'm telling you, Elton, I did not want to come back. And I remember sharing that with my therapist, where I told her, say, yo, I went somewhere. And I started crying while I was telling her.
Mhm.
I was like, I didn't want to come back. I didn't want to come back to wherever that was. So I knew at that moment, I got a taste of what that's going to be like for all of us.
It felt good.
It feels so good. It's like, and so now you're here on this earth, and you're looking at these, we're looking at everybody, and you look at all these vibrations, you look at everything different, because now it's like, man.
It's like, you ever see on Instagram when the girls be like, take me back, like they post a picture from their trip to Dominican Republic and be like, take me back.
So you have this awareness, and so everything becomes a little more clear. So they're constantly communicating with me, like, Raphaella, make sure that you're not operating out of fear. So things will come up, and immediately you're like, be careful. Just come out of fear. Just come out of fear. Don't go into that fear. Don't go into that energy, because again, we have to be here, and we're surrounded by that dense energy that is always at us. Yeah. So I think what happened to me is everything that is material doesn't matter anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am a minimalist. I don't care. I can't even go shopping. I force myself to buy things. I force myself because it's in this vibration. When you get higher in consciousness, mm-hmm. You can't even work in the same way. You can't do a 9-to-5 job. I can't even, Raphaella, I literally cannot. If Vogue magazine called me today and said, we want you to shoot the cover, I'd be like, I'm okay. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I would be like, give this to somebody who really wants to do this, because I do not have the bandwidth or the capacity. All I want to do is help people. All I want to do is talk to people like you who are interesting. And it goes from a place of where, even my inspiration, like I used to be inspired by so many different things as I was working as a photographer, even in television. But now I go to the things that fascinate me. Yeah. When something fascinates you, not only do you want to learn all about it, but you want to share it with everybody. So that's what I tell people now. I said, when you start getting into things that fascinate you, then that's when you're starting to raise your vibration, because you don't care about anything else. You like, this is out, whatever this is, feed me more. And I think that's a good sign for people to look out for, right?
To look out for, because I literally, what I own right now, it goes inside of a carry-on case.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my computer, and that's it. Yeah. And I don't like the only thing that I want, I tell them all the time, is just a space so that I can actually have my space where I can do my healing work.
Yeah, so I can that's bring
others in, and they create this little sanctuary where I can bring them in and do the healing work. Everything else, it begins not to matter anymore. Yeah. Even the idea of having certain relationships. I used to, oh my gosh, I got to get married. And I've been married for divorce, but I got to get remarried. This whole thing about having a family, like all of that goes out the door, because now your main focus is now, and not saying that there's something wrong with it, but knowing where you're from and where you're going, what's happening, everything that's like mundane, if I can use that word, it just disappears. It's like you don't really care about that anymore.
Yeah, you end up going, I like to say that you end up just figuring out a way to create heaven on earth.
Pretty much.
And I'm in a place where I'm not afraid to die anymore, in a sense, because I've already found peace here. And so that's actually how we really decided to get on this actual episode, because I told the community, I said, I just feel fully healed, and everybody everybody in the DMs were like, no, healing is a process. We're always healing. Everybody goes and heals. And I understand that sentiment, but you were
Yeah.
the only person to come in my DMs and say, yeah, in the 3D, if you're on the 3D consciousness, yes, you do need to heal. But when you get to 5D, it's just this feeling, and it felt so good to be seen. You
Yeah.
understand that. And again, I'm not saying like I'm perfect or I'm this magical being or whatever, but I'm in a place where I can process emotions so fast. I can, like, if something happens, it takes a lot for me to get mad. It always took a lot for me to get mad. I get passionate, but I don't get mad. And I can feel things and I cry all the time, but it's not through pain.
Right.
It's not the release of, at least in my case, it's not through necessarily the release of pain. It's from it feels like when I cry, I'm raising my vibration in a sense.
Yeah. And crying is good because crying is also removing of toxins. So
Mm-hmm.
when you cry, you're removing whatever toxins that might be already still in your body.
Yeah.
So crying is not a bad thing if you're crying over something that's painful. If you're crying over something that is joyful, tears remove toxins. So
Mm.
you're removing whatever that vibration that you might not even know that's there, that is coming out.
Yeah. That's what it's a cleansing. It's a cleanse. It's a detox. Yeah, you're right. It's such a detox. And I cry at love now a lot. Like when I see love, I was
Yeah.
just talking to a young lady who I'll be working with. Her name is Janelle B. And we're going to work on doing some group Q&A sessions. So surprise, surprise, I wanted to invite you to be one of the first moderators or the first guests that speak to this small community that we're building together. So me and Janelle B will be building up the like a focus group, maybe like 10 to 12 people, and then we'll moderate kind of like people that have questions about this podcast episode. So then they can come and talk to you directly, and we
Yeah,
can
that'd
get
be
more.
great.
Yes. So that's the surprise I have for you.
Oh
And
my
and
God.
I just met Janelle B literally before I talked to you, and she was just telling me, I'm sorry, she was just telling me her love story, and I started crying. I was like, whoa, and because I could feel it, and I just feel everything. I'm like,
You feel
shit.
everything. You feel everything. And it's funny you say that. I was watching this show on Apple TV. It's called Little America. I don't know if you ever saw the series.
No, I haven't
Oh, you
seen
got
it.
to. It's so good. And it's based on true stories. They're
Ooh,
based on
oh,
true
see.
stories. And so there was one episode, the last episode, it was about an Iranian guy who was gay. It was a
Mhm.
story. And his father discovered it and his family tried to kill him.
No.
And I'm watching this whole thing and I'm just like, and we can feel everything. So I'm
Ooh.
feeling the pain. I'm feeling everything. And I remember like finishing the episode and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting here crying and crying and
Ryan.
crying. And I was
Yeah.
just, and I started saying F fear because it's all based on fear. And
Mm.
love becomes, how can I say this? Everything disappears. The shell, this thing that we call our bodies, that I call a shell, it disappears because all there is just love or fear. That's the opposite.
Yes.
And so everything makes you cry. A commercial will make you cry, or you know what I mean?
Everything. Yeah. I cried. What
Because
I
we're
cried
operating.
a puppy. Like I just cry at anything, but it feels good. It's so beautiful, and I think that I try to share my tears as much as possible now because it's no shame in that, and I don't want people to have shame in that. I want people to be in love with themselves. I want people to be self-aware, and I want people to be healed because I do believe that you can get to that level. Well, Raphaella, this episode is I knew it. This is my favorite episode. I said it. No shade to any other episodes, but this is my favorite episode because I think that for me, especially to talk about this topic, which
Yeah.
is, you know, it could sound weird. You can't have this conversation with everybody because people will be like, what you talking about? Arcturians and
Yeah.
3D and 5D. And I feel like this is another level in the consciousness rays of the show for sure. So I wanted to have a quick little game before we leave. It's called 3D versus 5D. And I'm going to say a word and you give me, I'm going to say a 3D word and you give
Okay.
me what you think the 5D version of that is, or like the opposite. So if it's like, I'm operating on this word and then you say,
Yeah.
if you're in 5D, it'll be this. You got me?
Got it.
You get it? You get the
Yeah.
question? Okay,
All right.
so let's go.
Yeah.
All right, so the first 3D word is lack.
Ooh, you're operating. So the 5D will be abundance.
Yes, perfect. Okay, you got it. So we're going. All right.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
The next word is fear.
Love.
Of course.
5D love. Yes.
All right, the next word is 9 to 5.
Freedom.
Ooh, yes, the freedom hit. Yes. All right, the next 3D word is going to be competition or
Community.
comparison. What is it?
Community.
Yes, I like that. I like that. What about comparison?
You're enough. You're whole and complete.
Your whole. And two more. All right. The 3D word is force.
Flow.
Okay. And last but not least, I don't got another 3D word. Let me look at something. Chase is the last 3D word.
Like you're chasing something, or
Yeah, if you're chasing something, what would be the 5D?
the 5D would be trust.
Okay, I would have said attract, but trust is cute. No, that was so perfect. I really like that. So, Raphaella, where can people find you? Like, I know you're in Brazil now, but where can people find you in this world? Because I think more people need to experience your just energy is so amazing.
Yeah. Well, I'm in US, Brazil now, but I'm returning back to the US, back to Phoenix.
Okay.
But it can hit me up on Instagram, Restart by Raphaella. I
Mm-hmm.
hope folks start,
Yes.
their lives. So that's where they can find me. They can send me a DM. I'll be happy to answer any questions they might have.
Yes, I love this. And I can't wait. And then, guys, we're going to have her on next week. We're going to have our little Light Worker Wednesdays. That's what we're going to call it.
Oh, perfect day, Wednesday. I love it.
Yes, I'm going to call it Light Worker Wednesdays. So we're going to have different light workers come on. And if you want to be a special part of that, please send an email to Detroitchopra@gmail.com. Also send questions. I want to start having listener letters on the show too. So if you have any questions and if you would like to be part of this small focus group where we can have a Q&A with Raphaella and you guys can meet Janelle B, and it'll just be such a vibe. We're so excited. We're going to set that up.
I can feel the love already, like in my body, like it's burning up.
You already know this is going to be so special, and this is going to be the first one. So I'm so excited. Well, Raphaella, this was amazing. I knew it. I knew it was going to be good. And guys, if you're listening, try to get you some 5D love. Try to start. If you got to talk to your galaxy, find your galaxy and find your love and find your heart. All right. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode. So much gratitude all day. All right, guys. Thank you. And thank you, Raphaella. Peace.
Bye.